You're traveling through the unknown, a journey beyond the corners of reality, where the shadows whisper and the chill runs deep. Welcome to the dimension where your deepest fears are given form. This is The Midnight Mystery.
Welcome to The Midnight Mystery. This episode is called I Can Hear Whispers in My Basement. In each episode, we delve into the shadowed corners of our existence, bringing you tales of the eerie, the uncanny, and the downright terrifying. From the realms of the supernatural to the depths of the human psyche, no stone is left unturned, no dark secret left hidden. As the clock once again draws near midnight, prepare to embark on another adventure into the uncanny, the eerie, the horrifying, the midnight mystery. They call me Jack, and I'm a writer. A single man, halfway through my 30s, I've moved to this remote town to escape the unforgiving noise of the city and a love story gone awry. There's something about a heartbreak that propels you into unfamiliar territories, both geographical and emotional. The town's isolation and my newly acquired old house promised me the quietude I craved, the calm that's supposed to nurse a bleeding heart, and the solitude to write. The house was aged, like an old wine filled with secrets. It had history etched into its walls and character woven into its structure. After a few weeks of settling in, while trying to navigate my new routine, I stumbled upon an enigma, a hidden cellar, not mentioned in any of the architectural blueprints I had studied before buying the house. The door was old, as if untouched by time, and heavy, bearing the weight of the stories it kept hidden. As I stood at the entrance of the cellar, the antique door cold under my touch, I felt a shiver crawl up my spine. It was eerie, like the house was breathing its secrets into my ear. I laughed it off, brushing it as the side effects of living alone in a town where the only sounds I heard were my own. And then, one cold night, as I sat hunched over my typewriter, the silence of my house was shattered by hushed whispers, faint cries for help seeping from the depths of the cellar. My first instinct was to deny what I was hearing. It was the stress, the loneliness, my mind crafting stories out of thin air. "Hello?" I would often find myself calling out, my voice swallowed by the profound silence. But there was no answer, only the echo of my words bouncing off the high ceilings. It was like living in one of my own horror novels. With each passing day, the voices grew more desperate, their pleas louder. An icy fear began to clutch my heart. I would lie awake at night, the voices floating up the cellar, filling my room. It wasn't just my imagination. The voices were real. "What do you want?" I asked one night, standing at the cellar door, my hand shaking as it rested on the cold iron handle. "Help us." The reply was a frail whisper, but it reverberated through the silent house, settling heavy in the air. Their pleas gnawed at me. My solitude was no longer peaceful. It was punctuated by the desperate cries emanating from beneath my house. My curiosity began to overpower my fear. What secrets did the cellar hide? Why did the old heavy door refuse to stay locked? As I delved into this mystery, my quiet retreat morphed into a chilling labyrinth of whispers. And so, I stood at the precipice of the unknown, staring down at the old cellar door, ready to uncover the secrets it guarded so closely. My rational mind kept insisting on logical explanations. Wind, a faulty latch, anything but acknowledging the whispers as anything other than an old house settling into its bones. But there was no wind in the sealed-off cellar, and I'd checked the latch more times than I cared to admit. It was in perfect condition. Despite the chill that seemed to cling to the very air around the cellar door, I decided to investigate. I steeled myself, turned the iron handle, and descended into the uncharted darkness. The stairs creaked under my weight, each groan echoing through the pitch black as though announcing my intrusion. "Who's there?" I called out into the oppressive darkness, my voice trembling. There was only silence, a quiet so deep it was almost palpable. My flashlight swept over aged stone walls, cobwebs thick with dust, and wooden shelves filled with forgotten relics. A shiver ran through me. I found nothing that could explain the voices, nothing but old memories shrouded in dust and cobwebs. Each night after, I'd hear the whispers again, growing more desperate, more despairing. And each morning, I would find the cellar door ajar, despite having locked it up tight the previous night. With the door mysteriously reopening, the whispers from the cellar, my house started to take on a new identity. It was no longer just my home, but a dwelling to the past, the repository of untold stories. The pleas echoing in the corridors were no longer whispers, but became voices with a tangible presence. It was unsettling, yet my resolve to know the truth was unwavering. It seemed I was entangled in a narrative larger than my own life, a narrative that spanned generations. I was on the brink of a mystery, and the heavy cellar door that refused to stay shut was my gateway into it. Now, my quest wasn't just for quietude or writing a novel. It was about uncovering secrets that the house was desperate to share, no matter how unnerving they promised to be. In the days following, I threw myself into the history of the house. Hours turned into days as I pored over local archives and old newspaper clippings. The secluded town's history was tightly interwoven with the history of my house. It once belonged to a notorious 19th century doctor, a man whose name sent shivers down the spines of the locals even after centuries. The doctor, renowned for his medical brilliance, had a reputation that was as fearsome as it was fascinating. Hushed whispers in the archive room told tales of illegal and brutal experiments that he conducted in the secrecy of his home. My house. The shroud of dread that the cellar had cast over me suddenly made sense. The whispers, the pleas for freedom, the intense despair, they were remnants of the doctor's ghastly past. Nights became a realm of unrest. Sleep would reluctantly come, only to be marred by nightmares that felt hauntingly real. I would see myself trapped in the cellar, helpless and alone with no way out. It was as though I was reliving the fear and suffering of the doctor's victims, as though the walls of the cellar were replaying the past in my dreams. The voices from the cellar grew more intense, their pleas echoing through my waking hours and fueling my nightmares. Freedom. Relief, they begged, their cries resonating within me, igniting a determination I had not known before. Over cups of stale coffee in the local diner, I'd find myself discussing the town's history with old-timers, weaving casual conversations around the infamous doctor. "Aye, it's a part of our town's story we ain't too proud of," Old Man Jenkins, a local historian, would say, his eyes clouding over with a mixture of fear and disdain. "Do you think his experiments could have resulted in voices?" I asked hesitantly, leaving my question hanging in the air. Jenkins paused, looking at me over the rim of his glasses. "Son, the things that man did, we wouldn't put anything past him. He was said to have tampered with things beyond human understanding," he said, lowering his voice to a whisper. His words sent a chill down my spine. With every revelation, every conversation, I found myself drawn deeper into the mystery of my house and its former occupant. The whispers in the cellar were no longer just voices. They carried the weight of the house's history, bearing the untold stories of the doctor's victims. And I had unwittingly stepped into the role of the listener, the person who could finally bring their stories to light. Haunted yet determined, I resolved to solve the mystery that the old, heavy cellar door guarded. Every night I'd reassure the voices, "I'm here, I'm listening." Their cries for freedom and relief became my guiding force, my unwavering resolve to unearth the truth that the house had been hiding for centuries. After all, it wasn't just about the tranquility of my house anymore. It was about justice for those who had been wronged. It was about turning the whispers of the past into voices of truth. It was about setting the trapped souls free. The cellar seemed to echo with silent stories, every crevice pulsing with a history yet untold. I took a deep breath and descended the stairs, each step creaking under the weight of my anticipation. The air grew colder, thicker, as though time had been captured and preserved within these walls. In the dim glow of my flashlight, I saw the outlines of an abandoned laboratory. I stepped into the room, my boots crunching on the grime-covered floor. Rusty surgical tools lay scattered on a wooden table, their ominous presence casting long shadows. Strange old medical devices of a bygone era covered the room, their functions obscured by time. Shelves lined the walls, filled with jars holding eerily preserved specimens. My heart pounded in my chest as the reality of the doctor's ghastly past settled in. "God, what happened here?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. In the midst of this horrifying display, I found an old leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age. Cautiously, I opened it to find entries penned in an elegant but tremulous handwriting. It was the doctor's journal. As I read through the entries, my heart clenched in horror. The doctor detailed his experiments on unwilling subjects, people deemed less valuable by society. The poor, the homeless, the orphans, they were nothing more than lab rats to him, pawns in his mad quest for knowledge. The journal revealed a man devoid of empathy, fascinated by pain and suffering. His grotesque curiosity painted a chilling picture of the atrocities that had taken place in this very cellar. The subject, a man of no fixed abode, screamed louder than the others. One entry began. I had to stop reading, my stomach churning. The words on the page were more monstrous than any ghost story, a true testament to human depravity. As I emerged from the cellar, the voices seemed to grow louder, their despair amplified by the newfound understanding I had of their suffering. Their pleas now made sense. They were the echoes of the doctor's victims, desperate to be freed from their eternal torment. Late into the night, I found myself sitting at my desk, the doctor's journal laid open before me. "I'll help you. I'll tell your stories," I whispered into the darkness, the promise both to the whispering voices and myself. From the corners of the house, the cellar beneath my feet, came an almost perceptible sigh of relief. Haunted by the past's gruesome secrets, I was more determined than ever to honor those who had been wronged. I would bring their stories to light, provide them the solace they yearned for. The doctor's house was no longer just an old building in a secluded town. It was a chamber of secrets, a testament to a horrifying past, a beacon for justice, and I was its chosen speaker. As days turned into weeks, the whispering voices became clear, distinct. The trapped spirits of the doctor's victims reached out to me from the cellar, their pleas growing louder, more desperate. Each voice told a tale of horror, of unbearable pain, and an unending limbo. "I was just a child," one sobbed. "He took me from the streets, promised me a meal, and a warm bed. Nobody came looking for us," another confessed in a hollow voice. "We were forgotten in life and death." Their narratives filled the night, seeping into my dreams and echoing in my every waking moment. I felt a crushing sense of responsibility. These were souls that had been wronged, their lives cruelly snatched away. They were trapped in the endless cycle of reliving their horror, pleading for peace. I had to tell their stories. The world had to know. So I began to write, feverishly transcribing the spirits' tales and the doctor's monstrous acts. I took their whispers and turned them into words, their pain into paragraphs. The first person I tried to confide in was my best friend Michael. "Listen, Michael, you have to believe me," I implored him over a shaky video call. I held up the doctor's journal to the screen, the leather cover worn with age, but he just shook his head, his expression a mix of concern and disbelief. "Jack, this sounds crazy. Have you been sleeping okay?" I wasn't deterred. I went to the local newspaper, the police, historical societies. I showed them the journal, relayed the spirits' tales. But each attempt was met with dismissal and skepticism. The more I insisted, the more they believed I was losing my sanity. Even the friendly nods from the town's folk dwindled into whispers of concern and crossed paths. I was the man who lived in the old doctor's house, the man who claimed to hear voices, the town's newest madman. Isolation gripped me, but it wasn't the solitude that stung. It was the disbelief, the disregard for the terrible crimes that occurred right beneath their feet. But I couldn't. I wouldn't give up. For those lost souls trapped in the cellar, I was their only hope. My every waking moment became consumed by the mission. I was no longer just Jack, the writer. I was a medium, a bridge between the living and the dead, a voice for the voiceless. My promise to the spirits fueled me. The task of revealing the atrocities committed in the house became my driving force. Their whispers became my only companions, their anguish my own. My sense of self blurred into a fervent purpose. I was to expose the horrors hidden beneath my home, to release these tormented spirits. I was the caretaker of their stories, their truths, and no amount of skepticism would deter me. As I continued my solitary exploration of the house, the cellar offered a new revelation. A hidden room concealed behind a stone wall. The air grew denser as I moved the last stone, revealing a long-forgotten sanctuary. It was the doctor's personal chamber, filled with antiquities from his era, and in the center stood a large, ornate mirror. Its bronze frame was laced with intricate designs that bore a patina of age. Despite the dust and cobwebs that coated its surface, The mirror held an uncanny shine. It was unsettling yet captivating, a relic that seemed out of place even in this ancient cellar. Upon touching the mirror's surface, an icy chill ran through my fingertips, making my hair stand on end. But then the chill subsided, replaced by images. Scenes from the past started unfolding within the mirror's depth, like a silent film stuck in a gruesome loop. The doctor, a towering figure in his prime, hovered over frail bodies on his operation table, his face obscured by a surgical mask. His eyes glinted with a mix of obsession and madness. The victims' screams filled the room, but the mirror merely vibrated with silent echoes of their agony. Each glance into the mirror pulled me deeper into the doctor's world, into the terrifying heart of his obsessions. I saw, firsthand, the grotesque nature of his experiments. And with each viewing, a part of me was taken away, lost to the horrors of the past. I started experiencing blackouts, waking up in parts of the house with no recollection of how I got there. Whole hours slipped from my grasp, disappearing into a void. My dreams were filled with the screams of the victims, their faces twisted in agony, mirroring the horror I'd seen in the mirror. I could feel my sanity fraying at the edges, but I was too far gone to turn back now. One evening, as I stood before the mirror, the image shifted. This time it wasn't the doctor's operation table. It was him staring directly at me, as though aware of my intrusion into his world. "I see you." His lips moved, but the words echoed inside my head, a cold whisper that clung to my mind. The sudden contact yanked me back, breaking the link between the mirror and me. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding against my rib cage. I staggered back into the living room, my mind a whirl of confusion and terror. I wanted to run, to leave the house and its haunted past behind, but the voices from the cellar rose, a chorus of pleas pulling me back to my resolve. "I won't abandon you," I murmured, my words swallowed by the echoing silence. The house remained silent save for the whispers that seemed to be waiting for my next move. But the mirror's revelation had taken its toll. I could feel myself losing grip on reality, slipping further into the doctor's world. But amidst the fear and growing insanity, I knew I had a mission, a promise to keep. The mirror was a portal to the past, a horrifying yet essential tool in my quest. I woke up one day to find myself in an unfamiliar world, enveloped in a chilling air that reeked of antiseptics and fear. My heart pounded as the horrifying truth dawned upon me. I was not in my own time. The mirror had done more than just show me the past. It had thrown me into it. The once familiar walls of my home were now echoing with the victims' cries and the doctor's callous laughter. I was in the heart of the doctor's world, a helpless observer to the horrors unfolding before me. Days blurred into nights as I was forced to relive the victims' suffering, their desperate pleas for mercy echoing in my ears. I tried, oh how I tried, to intervene, to stop the doctor, but I was a phantom in this time, unseen and unheard. Desperation seeped into my soul as I realized the weight of my predicament. I was trapped in the past, bound to witness the atrocities I had been fighting to uncover. The mirror had not only shown me the past, it had made me a prisoner within it. In the moments of lucidity, I scribbled down my experiences in my journal, hoping that someday someone would find them and know the truth. The whispering voices in the cellar, the mirror, the doctor's atrocities, everything was penned down in a desperate attempt to make sense of the madness I was living. Then one day I woke up, and the nightmare was over. I was back in my time, back in the comfort of my solitude. But the echo of the victim's screams still rang in my ears, a chilling reminder of the horrors I had witnessed. The house stood silent, the whispers from the cellar hushed, as if mourning my return. Time had passed differently in my world. Friends and locals were searching for me, my disappearance adding to the strange lore of the old house. I wanted to tell them the truth, to make them understand, but all I had were my worn-out journal and the haunted look in my eyes. When they found my journal, they read it with apprehension and confusion. They saw the sketches of the mirror, the doctor, and the detailed descriptions of the experiments. But to them, these were just the ramblings of a man unhinged by solitude and stress. The same locals who had dismissed my initial claims chose to disregard my journal's content as mere hallucinations of a troubled mind. My disappearance was explained as a result of my declining mental health, My obsession with the doctor's past, my story, my struggle, was reduced to nothing more than an eccentric writer's crazed fantasies. The voices were silenced once again, their plea for peace unheard, their stories untold. And so, I disappeared from the present, my existence fading into the fabric of the house's grim past. The whispers from the cellar were now joined by my voice, another victim of the doctor's heinous past. The mirror stood there, a silent testament to my journey, waiting for the next inhabitant to stumble upon its secret. As I gaze upon the house from an indeterminate abyss, the truth of its existence unfolds. The house still stands, a monolith against time, an ever-looming reminder of the horrors it contains. Its secrets remain, sealed within the whispering cellar, waiting for its next unsuspecting tenant to stumble upon the cellar door that refuses to remain locked. My voice, now an echo of its former self, joins the chorus of whispers that fill the house's quiet corners. From beyond the veil of the living, I witness the grim legacy the house continues to perpetuate. The doctor's horrifying deeds, the victim's cries, my own desperate journey, all become a part of the house's haunting melody. The stillness is occasionally broken as prospective buyers wander through the property. I observe them from my ethereal plane, noting the unease that seems to creep upon them as they pass the entrance to the cellar. "Creepy old place, isn't it?" a man remarks to his wife as they traverse the echoing halls. The wife nods, wrapping her arms around herself as if warding off a chill. I feel like it's watching us. How right they are, I think to myself. But they leave, just like the others before them, leaving the house and its stories to its solitude. My voice calls out to them, joining the silent screams from below, but they are unheard, lost in the echo of time and space. Days bleed into months. The house stands unoccupied, save for its spectral tenants. It becomes a local legend, whispered about in hushed tones, a chilling ghost story for wide-eyed children. The haunted house, they call it, unaware of how accurate their childish label truly is. Yet, the house waits. I wait. For the one who would listen, for the one who would dare to uncover the layers of its horrifying past. We linger in this unsettling harmony, the whispers of the past, and my echo growing louder with each passing day. My existence, once a vibrant dance of hopes and dreams, has now been reduced to an echo in the wind. I am a voice joining the symphony of whispers, another tragic note in the house's grim concerto. I am no longer the writer seeking solitude in a quaint town, nor am I the man who dared to unravel a chilling past. I am Jack, the lost echo, a fragment of a tale untold, a warning unheeded, and a promise unfulfilled. I am but another layer added to the house's grim legacy. And as the days turn into years, I watch, I listen, and I wait. The house remains standing, its heavy cellar door ajar, its whispers growing in intensity, waiting for the next inhabitant to venture beyond the threshold of the known into the chilling realm of the unknown. The house waits, as do I. For our story is not yet over. It remains etched within the walls, whispered through the corridors, and echoed in the cellar. The truth waits to be heard, the victims wait for release, and I wait for redemption. Until then, we remain, the house and I, echoes of a tragic past, bound by a shared destiny, waiting for the day when our voices will be heard, when our tale will finally be told. This is the Midnight Mystery signing off, leaving you with a simple reminder. When the clock strikes 12, fear the silence, for that's when our tales come to life. Good night, Midnight listeners, and remember, not all who wander into the dark are lost.